I just wanted to respond to what Duncan was talking about here. First of all, I want to note, you guys are talking about God and religion, and the first comment I want to make is that it's not by accident that your podcast is 1444. You know, first I want to, it's not an accident you're talking about this. Why isn't it not an accident? Because of this. Right here on my wall. It says, things do not happen, things are made to happen. By John F. Kennedy. First of all, it's not an accident that this is podcast 1444. And why is it not an accident that this is podcast 1444? Because, and no one ever taught me this, the Spirit taught me this. And that's what the Holy Spirit do. He's a teacher. He's a speaker and a teacher. You know, in the day of Pentecost, when they saw those things called tongues, why don't you ever ponder? Looks like my thing's out of focus. Don't you ever ponder anything in the Bible and try to find the secret? Remember Jesus said he hides stuff? Even with the disciples, Jesus only showed the Mount Transfiguration of him, of who he, the glory of who he really was, to 3 disciples. That's how it works. And I'll explain later how all this works, because you guys don't know anything about it, hardly. You know a little bit about stuff, but you really don't know anything. The Spirit first showed, I had a computer Bible bought back, cost about 500 some bucks back in the day. And first time I typed in and looked up the word God, it showed up in the King James Version of the Bible 4,444 times. Now you might say, well, what a coincidence. No. There's no coincidence when it comes to God. They didn't know about DNA. I was going to write a book about spiritual DNA because God showed me a revelation of spiritual DNA. And I was going to write a book about it. Someone else beat me to the punch because the Spirit, see, now I've been going to write the book. So they wrote the book. And they used the exact same scriptures that God gave them, which is very common. God speaks universal to all of the Christians, you know. And the ones that are really in tune with God are hearing the right thing. Now, you can be in tune with Satan and hear his voice. And you guys don't even understand the basic fundamental of how that began. And I don't even know any Christians that really understand that. You see in Genesis, and I'm not going to explain the secret of that because I'm going to save that one for a book. But in Genesis, Satan rewrote mankind's spirit. He changed it. And a lot of Christians think it has to do with the knowledge of good and evil. That was the second thing he did to man's spirit. But there was an initial thing that Satan did, and I'm not going to reveal the secret here. But you won't see Satan be able to speak into Jesus' spirit. You'll see Satan manifest himself to Jesus and speak to him. You'll see Satan sneak into Peter and speak to him, but he can't speak into his spirit. That means that voice isn't there. The only voice that Jesus was hearing was the Father's voice. There's no disconnect. Hence, going full circle back to what I was talking about in the day of Pentecost, where man, because of the separation of what was inside of man, there was a separation of what is inside of man. If you read John chapter 1, it kind of gives you a revelation of it. It says, darkness was in the world. And I'm sure you understand, when a fish is in a cave for so many years, it loses its eyes. And that's kind of why the Old Testament was written, to begin the opening of the eyes. Then when Jesus came, the New Testament, when Jesus, the Son of God, who was prophesied through the entire Old Testament, whose blood was slain originally for man's sin in Genesis, then you move forward to Egypt, where they put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. And then you move forward in history, and then of course Jesus, the lamb, is finally slain. Now, why did they even use animals? Well, it was pure blood. They didn't have the consciousness to know what sin is and to move into that. I'm kind of suffering a little bit with this virus thing. So I'm going to be kind of coughing a little bit here and there. But basically, you don't have understanding. And spiritual DNA, I don't want to get too deep into all this stuff. I've kind of lost my train of thought where exactly I was going. So I'm trying to download too much information at once. I mean, I can't download 40 years of information so that you can understand in a, I don't know, 30-minute video. But going back to the 4444, let's go back to there. 4 is DNA. One of the books I was going to write was about spiritual DNA. The Holy Spirit gave me a revelation on it. And it says, the scripture he gave me was something Solomon mentioned. Now, if you know anything about DNA, it speaks and it commands a cell to be. It actually has the power, by speaking, and information is what it is based on that speaking. If it's diseased information, well, then it's diseased information. And it's very interesting how similar spiritual DNA is and mental DNA is to physical DNA. Very similar. One's physical, one's mental, one's spiritual. They're all very similar across the board. And when God does little things like this, like 444, you know, the word God is in the King James Version 4,444 times, not an accident. DNA has 4 letters. The cross has 4 points. Jesus, who's the Word, has 4 letters. Then it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then it says that nothing that was not made without the Word. Now, we know in the universe, scientists have enough understanding to know that basically everything is just bits of information. Everything's just information. That's why they're trying to find out the foundation of information by building things like the Hadron Collider. The Hadron Collider is going to find the smallest bits of information in which everything is made, including space and time. Now, once you understand what space and time exactly is by those bits of information, then you can begin to control it. Just like that when they got the equation E is equal to mc squared. When they get that information, they're going to be like gods almost, if they know how to manipulate that information. That's all. Everything is about information manipulation. You have, 40 trillion cells in your body. They're all, every one of your cells is communicating. That means that they have the ability to hear, and they have the ability to communicate information or move information around. Now, if that information in your DNA cell gets messed up, well, you get a thing called cancer. Now, spiritual DNA, whom Jesus being the Word, Satan created a parallel universe, you could almost say, by creating the first lie. Before that, There was no disease. Do you understand? There was no disease. You know, most people don't understand in the Garden of Eden, there was no worry or fear or any of this stuff. And I also have a revelation. I also have a revelation of time. 40 years ago, I was praying, and I felt time slow down. I thought, well, maybe that's just something you feel when you pray. Then I was with an unsaved friend in a car, and as I was praying, the time slowed down, and the friend next to me who's unsaved didn't know I was praying, felt it. And when he felt that, he panicked, and he's like, he knew it was time slowing down, which is an amazing thing. I knew it felt like time the first time I experienced it. But when he, as a witness, not knowing I was praying, and said time is slowing down, and we're not talking about someone that's ever used any drugs. I worked in the medical field for 20 years. Don't use any drugs. So, only been drunk just to see what it was like one time in my life. Never smoked pot in my life. And hey, invite me on the show. I'll smoke some pot. I'll try some mushrooms. I want to see what you're seeing in that realm. I'm not afraid to take the little blue pill. Or take the red pill, and that's your problem on what you can't see. Let me finish up before I go into that point about the. Let me write down these notes because I want to go back to the little red pill thing. Take a little note. I ain't planned all this. I'm just kind of shooting my mouth off as it goes. I'm gonna get back to the red pill because I want to go back to that point. But basically, the 444 isn't an accident. It's God's sign in his name. He made DNA and put 4 letters. The word God itself, the real word of God, not G-O-D, but the real Hebrew word of God has 4 letters. Not an accident. Not an accident. God was in the King James Version 4,444 times. Not an accident. DNA has 4 letters. Not an accident. Your podcast is number 1444. Not an accident that the cross has 4 points. Not an accident that the closest disciple to Jesus was John, whose name in English language has 4 letters, who wrote the 4th gospel. None of these are accidents. And there's more 4s. There's probably some more 4. Oh, Jesus, who's also the King. King has 4 letters. But the biggest one is Jesus, the Word, because a word is what DNA speaks. DNA speaks a word. And that is what controls everything. That's actually what creates the matrix. Satan created a matrix by a word. Now, I don't want to get too deep on all this stuff. I'm working on books, and I don't want people to steal my information and stuff. You know, I haven't even wrote any books yet. I'm getting close to retiring here in 26 weeks, and where I can actually start writing on some books. But I've downloaded about 10,000 hours of information because I have a spiritual gift, and spiritual gifts are very common in the Christian world. It's just a very common thing, and you don't seem. You've spent too much time in the comedy world, and you know about comedy. Both of you, you know where you've been. You can't know where you haven't been. You haven't went down there. You not only have not went down that rabbit hole, you haven't taken the red pill. Now, the red pill is just like in the Matrix. When you take the red pill and you get born again, I got tricked into getting born again. Had my first supernatural encounter with God, and everything in the encounter bared witness with, in the supernatural encounter, bared witness with the Bible. And I had not read the Bible yet. And that was just one revelation. Since that time, you have revelation after revelation after revelation, because God does. That's just the beginning of it. It's just like in the Matrix, when he finally got in there, he started learning all about that world and everything. So you haven't taken neither one of you have become born again. Now, once you become born again, it's almost like you have your own private Hadron Collider sensor. You have the ability to sense that realm. When you take drugs, what does drugs really do for you? Drugs is like the Hadron Collider. Drugs is your ability to sense and enter into another realm. That's what drugs do for you. But when you get born again, you don't need drugs. Now, some people do have to have a near-death experience to find out what's on the other realm, and I'm amazed you don't know you don't know much about near-death experiences. You don't talk about them. In this book, for example, and I've been watching these things all my life. I don't claim to be an expert in them, but I'm not stupid. But when a girl who's born blind and has never seen ever, has a near-death experience, pops out of her body, sees her body for the first time, and mind you, she was freaked out when she saw it, and she could see her, by feel, she knew that was her ring that she's wearing as she's out of her body, and she pops out of her body, and she goes and she talks to Jesus in heaven, and Jesus tells her some things. I just taught him some things 2 days ago that this woman, who through the gift of the Holy Spirit, I have the gift of understanding, through that gift, and not too many Christians have that gift, but through this gift, I can understand the scriptures where other people can't see them as well. They can't see the keys and the secrets. They can't open them up. It's just like opening up a book. You can look at the outside of a book, but until you open it, you can't see what's inside of it. That's what they did with DNA. They had to open it up. They had to access it and open it up and find out what is going on in there. So until you can open up a scripture, you can't see it. But God has done that by design. It's there by design. But basically, until you get born again, until you get that ability to sense, it's like these kids that are psychic children. They can sense that realm. But if you've ever noticed, it's a dark realm. They're not sensing the good realm. I've never heard too many stories of psychic children who's been given that gift that actually sense anything good in the good realm. It's mainly the dark realm. The dark realm of demons and spirits that are wandering, that seem to be stuck here on this earth. And to me, that's not a big deal, because hell, if you live in enough evilness, I opened up a portal when time slowed down for me. Okay, if I can enter into the kingdom where there is no time by praying, don't you think that people that get close to the darkness can open up a portal of hell? You know, you can have church on earth, you can open up that on earth, or you can open up hell. It's just another realm, another dimension. You got that crazy, not crazy, that movie, what's that movie? The Netflix series where they, I can't think of the name, where they open up a portal. It was a real famous little series that was on where they opened up a portal to the dark side, and scientists were messing around, you know, and they opened up this portal, and one of those creatures came through, and that is so similar to hell. I mean, Hitler was messing with the occult. He was trying to open up information. He was using that as a power to try to access some of that information. I'm not an expert on what Hitler was doing or anything, but I think there are people out there that know. But you can open up that portal. But because I opened up a portal, if I can open a portal on the good side and have time slow down, which represents the kingdom, which really represents what, if you look at Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve didn't experience. Oh, I was going to play what Duncan was going to said here. I never played that. I got ahead of myself. But Duncan was talking about, let me go back and play that real quick. So I'm trying to cover too much information at once.
Damascus being like blinded. There's all these stories of being like already existing in what Buddhism, it's sometimes Buddhism call fundamental goodness. That's already where we're at. That's the main channel, but we've sort of grown like little bits of grass into the time-space continuum, and right now we're like waving in the wind of our karma, and not realizing there's a beneath us or through us or moving through us is a much grander, more beautiful, incredible thing. So, like, I think when people say, yeah, they've been in it so people be afraid, it sort of imagines that these people are having one-way conversations with it. You know, that when they pick...
So he's saying you can't have these one-way conversations, and you can if God trusts you enough, because that's the beginning of the speaking in the day of Pentecost. And I don't know that because I'm paying attention to the day of Pentecost. I know that by actual experience of God speaking, and then I see it in the Bible. Oh, this makes sense. Of how God was speaking to them in their own language in different tongues, which is just God affirming Genesis, where he changed the language in the first place. It's just him showing that, saying, look, I spoke in these other tongues, and there's plenty of people out there that spoke in other tongues, and other people understood what they're saying, but you're just not connected to any of this Christianity stuff. You haven't been in those realms. There's so much, you haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg of what's out there in Christianity. And I'm just a small little tiny bit of information that's coming at you where you've caught my attention. I mean, I do know a lot. I would say I know things that Joe Osteen don't know. In the first message, when God actually called me to preach, I preached a message into a tape recorder, then I turned on Joe Osteen, and that was right when Joe Osteen started his ministry, and my message was identical to his message, and that was how I knew that I was called to preach, because I thought, it's identical. And why I never went that route is a story that only I can understand. I can explain it, but that would almost take a podcast to explain that. But I've figured all that out, why I never went into the ministry, and how I got blocked. I got blocked by Christians, which Christians are, Satan can use those. But I'm going way too deep. The main thing is you're saying that God doesn't talk. He does. That's when when you get born again, that's when you start hearing him. That's the beginning. That's how you can speak in that realm. And the point I was talking about, you won't see Jesus hearing Satan. He didn't hear that. He was totally connected to the Father. So that's all he heard. And it was so simple for him because he didn't have Satan speaking into his spirit. Now in Genesis, Satan changed our spirit so he could have access. It's no different than the internet. If you've ever watched any of these shows where they're trying to get into the computers, they shut off all the electricity and they try to block them from getting through their firewall because they don't want them to have access. In Genesis, Satan did a trick, a secret that I'm not going to reveal here. I might be one of the few Christians that completely understand it. But he did something in Genesis so he could have access into your spirit. And then you got all these people wrestling with these demons. You got Whitney Houston. You got Michael Jackson battling his demons and taking Diprovan to try to get some sleep. Because he doesn't know how to master these demons. And that's kind of what Buddha did. Buddha mastered the sin in him, the demonic voice, the demonic speaking. And as Christians, that's something you have to learn how to master. And Duncan, and really even to be successful in life, you have to learn to master your inner demons. Because they'll continue to speak. Even the law of attraction, which is a new age, there's so many new age mentalities that stumble onto truths. There's a lot of new age mentalities that stumble onto truths that are already in the Bible. People just can't see them. But they stumble onto these truths just like Buddha stumbled onto a truth to master the mind when really it's mastering the sin in you. So they stumble on these truths, and they get fame. Because truth is Jesus, and Jesus is of the kingdom where everything's a different realm. Everything isn't different in that realm. It's the way it's supposed to be. Everything is totally different in that realm. There's millions of witnesses who, thanks to medical technology, have come back from that realm. And there's blind girls that came back from that realm that saw for the first time, saw their body from the first time. I mean, there's so much evidence. And that's just the evidence without Christianity. There's plenty of Christians out there. For example, the Sid Roth show. I've seen so many different things that I've had the same experience. There's one guy that has two gifts. He has the gift of understanding like me. He's the only other Christian I've ever heard that's had the gift of understanding. And let's see what his name is. His name is Shane Wall, I think it is. But he has a seer gift, which he can see angels. And he made a comment that there are some angels that do have wings, not all of them. There's different types of angels, but there are some that actually do have wings. And he sees them. And one time he was in a service, and he has the seer gift. And he's not the only one. There's plenty of Christians that have that gift. There's another guy. Let me finish the point on that one. He saw the angels flapping his wings, and he said to God, "What does that mean when the angels are flapping their wings like that?" And God said to him, "Well, I think he said there's something about it's time you got to give a message of salvation when you see that, because salvation is the most important thing, and getting born again, which you guys have never taken that red pill and entered into that matrix realm and got that sensor. And just because you get born again doesn't mean that sensor will develop. Do you know how hard it took to build the Hadron Collider, to build that sensor? Do you have any idea how much time and energy it took to build that? Just because you get born again doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to start hearing God. You got to build that baby. You got to allow that thing. You got to, if you have a plant, you got to water it. You got to feed that plant, and then it starts to develop, and that's the way spiritual things work. So just because you get born again doesn't all of a sudden mean you're going to hear God's voice. And I've only heard God's audible voice twice, but it took me 40 years to figure out. I've heard his audible voice twice. I mean, we're talking audible. He speaks all the time through many different ways. And he does it this way to keep. Some people do have revelation, like they have encounters with Jesus all the time, and they see angels. I've only seen an angel once, and I was in a half asleep state, and I'm glad that I was, but it represented my spiritual state the time I was in, because I was in sin. But I'm trying to cover too much information here. But basically, the thing that triggered me is Duncan saying that I need to focus on just one point at a time. I mean, Duncan saying that God doesn't speak to you. He does. I've had church services, where God, every question I ask, God answered through the minister. And some people have the ability to hear God better than others. That's what ministers, if you have a good minister, that's what they do. They actually can hear God. And see, you guys just don't understand how it works. Like Satan, you can actually hear Satan speaking to you if you know how to listen for it. You can identify the difference if you listen. If you get quiet, and you or if you just monitor your thoughts, you'll catch one of Satan sneaking in there and speaking in your spirit. You'll catch it. And you'll say, "Oh." But you'll actually start to catch those little sneaky, sly. He tries to remain stealthy and invisible. That's his goal. He doesn't want you to believe he's real. That's the last thing in the world. But he didn't have no choice with Jesus. He couldn't speak into his spirit. So you'll see in the temptation of Jesus, he just flat out appears right before him, bluntly. That was the only way he could speak to him. He couldn't speak into his spirit. So part of the thing that blocks us from hearing God is all this other speaking in our own inner voice, which, I don't want to give away too many secrets. It's amazing how silly so much people do not know about how the human mind works. It's so simple. And even though I understand it, I haven't begun to even master it myself, but it's really, when you really get down to it, it's so simple. But there are some secrets to it. But I guess, let me see if Duncan says anything else that triggers me, but because I feel like I'm just not, I'm trying to answer too much stuff at once, and I can't download a book. I can't download 40. Since 14 years old, I've had experiences. The Sid Roth Show has millions of people, and I've had lots of the similar experiences. That's how I know this stuff's real. I've already had the experience myself. I didn't see their experience and believe. I guess I was telling the story about how the one guy has the seer gift, Shane Wall, who has the gift of understanding plus the be able to see gift into the spirit. He can see angels. I heard an angel one time in my house. I mean, I heard these 6-foot long wings flapping. And we had no chimney, so there was no bird in the chimney. It was an older house. It had no windows that were open, and I heard it. And that's just one of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of thousands of revelations that you have as a Christian that builds this thing called faith. Faith is not belief for no reason. Faith is comes by hearing, by people like me telling you real supernatural experiences. That's what the Bible is. Real. When it says Jesus walked on water, he walked on water. I even had that experience once. But that's how I knew that the one guy was seeing angels, because God gives little clues so you know when people's telling the truth, because you've had the same experiences. At least that's how it works for me. There was one guy that a car passed right through him. I forget this guy's name, but it's on Sid Roth. A car came and it went right through him. Another story, a woman, a truck driver, she was out, I think in Mexico, and a truck driver blocked her off, and she was on a head-on collision with another truck. God translated the car, moved the car, completely translated, just like he translated one of the disciples. And there's plenty of other Christians that have had that same experience. There's a Christian called Henry Groover. He and 6 other people were translated to Rome, and they released the mantle of the Apostle Paul. 2 large angels, demonic black angels, were guarding this mantle, and him and 6 other guys were translated to Rome, and they went down this staircase, and he through the power, I mean, you'd have to watch the video, and I know this stuff seems crazy to you, but each one of those guys communicated with him after the fact about saying, hey, did you feel like you were translated to this place at this time? And they all were in different areas of the country, and some were in other countries, and they were all translated at the same time. And I know you think all this stuff is silliness, but this is how deep this rabbit hole goes. This rabbit hole goes, so deep. I mean, you guys are clueless. You guys are playing around with seeing little things, like little karmas and things, how you kind of like reap what you sow. That's not karma. It's called you reap what you sow. You guys are playing along and seeing little truths, that make you believe in this ridiculous reincarnation stuff. And then you guys make comments about, there's all these other gods. Of course there's all these other gods. There's 1/3 of the demonic force out there that's trying to make you believe that there are other gods. And guess what? They have an inroad into your spirit that God doesn't have until you get born again to talk to you, you dumb butts. I don't mean to call you dumb butts. You're not dumb. Neither one of you guys are dumb. You're some of the most, Joe Rogan's one of the most grounded individuals I've ever seen in my life. He seems like it. I don't know how he reacts under pressure. Probably pretty good. But you guys just don't know anything. And there's a lot of people like me. There's people that's went way beyond me. I haven't even went that deep in all this stuff yet. And there's a reason I haven't, which is beyond most people's understanding. It's beyond any Christian's understanding. Because not too many Christians have the gift of understanding. And I have to respect Buddhism in some way, because at least they're approaching it in a way of understanding. I even have some Buddhistic sayings on my wall right here. Because Buddha was searching for what? Truth. Buddha knew that there was something wrong. And it's what God said to Cain in Genesis. God said to Cain in Genesis, he said, you must master the sin in you. And that's what Buddha did. So Buddha was on the right track. That's the core problem. I'm sure you've all seen the movie Troy, the Trojan horse. Satan has that download in us. There's a Trojan horse in every Christian. Why do you think Jesus said that no one's good in the Bible? Now, Christians are not very intelligent when it comes to understanding spiritual things, because they think that they're good once they get born again, but it don't work that way. That's the beginning of change. That's just the beginning of change. That's where that's your first step of change. That doesn't mean you're good. You've got a download of satanic DNA, because the Bible says words are either life or death. You've got a download of, it's like a field that's full of weeds. And you get born again, all you got is one plant. It's a powerful plant, though. But when you get born again, you have one plant in that field, that huge field that's called a thing called your spirit and heart, which is massive, which you guys take drugs, and then you see all these beings that enter into that realm, because that's the realm you go to when you take your drugs. You enter into that realm of consciousness. You lose your regular consciousness and enter into that consciousness. And they live in that realm. They have access to that realm, because Satan gave them access in Genesis. And I can tell the secret in private on how that works. But I'm not gonna quite reveal it here, because I gotta save some stuff from my books. And other people write my books. I've already had one person write one of my books. But you don't understand, when you enter that drug realm, you're entering a realm they already have access to, that in Genesis they made it so that they could have access to. So when you enter that realm, and you've got these beings giving you middle fingers and having an understanding that's way deeper than you. I'm not saying any of these entities are dumb. They know how it all works, and you're clueless on how it all works. You don't even know that you're entering into the realm that Satan created in Genesis so that they could enter into your spirit in the first place. They couldn't enter into Jesus' spirit. And you will see, all you'll see is Jesus hearing the Father. That's why he could do what he did. That's why he was so rock solid. And he was born. Plus, there's another secret in Genesis, or not Genesis, but there's a secret of how God made Jesus in the first place from a woman who did the first sin, which was Eve. So the reverse of the correction came through what? A woman. The disease entered a woman first, The correction came through a woman. And you would say, oh, it's Mary. No, it's not Mary. It's Abraham, who believed God, whose word is the truth, the true DNA. He believed that, and that was counted him as what? Righteousness. So believing a truth is called righteousness. Now, there's a lot of things you guys believe. A lot of things you guys believe. But when he believed that, that was counted as righteousness. So then, after he was counted as righteousness, what did God do? He fixed what? The woman. What did he do to the woman? He took her seed, which she was too old. She was what, like 90 when she had a baby? We know that a woman's seed is, they remain in there, but they die. The fruit's dead. The seed can't be fertilized. So he resurrected that seed. Then from her lineage came Christ. From that lineage, all the way up to Mary, then, and see how God hides that? Instead of just like making Jesus right away, he had some preparation to do, the Old Testament, to get the blindness to wake up, man, to let them know what evil is, and that there is a law out there, just like there's laws in nature called the laws of gravity. We don't disrespect those laws. So he said there's certain laws, certain principles, and he established that, and they thought that, they didn't understand that there was a greater law to come, greater things to come. So through the woman, he resurrected Abraham's wife Sarah. The seed was resurrected, and then it was passed until finally the Holy Spirit merged with that seed. But there was something new created about it. You could call it the first resurrection. But if you know anything about seeds, and I'm sure you just don't. Maybe you know a little bit. But a seed's one of the most powerful things. We can't make one yet, because then you'd have to be able to make DNA. Like if all the seeds of the earth got radiated, including the human seed of our sperm and the woman's egg, plus all the seeds on the earth got radiated, let's say by some solar winds or something. Everything got radiated and all the seeds got destroyed, but somehow people remained alive. They survived the radiation from the solar winds or whatever. Then if all the seeds that reproduce are destroyed, then that would be it. All life would die. If all the seeds got destroyed, we can't make a seed. We can't do that. Not yet. Now we're getting there. But everything would die, because that would be the end of it. So of course God made a new seed in Sarah, because it was the beginning of something, what? Something new. And then Jesus is also like the new Adam. He's not only the Son of God, he's like the new Adam. And we get born of what? He's the Word. We're born again by believing in him. And what is he? The Word. And what is he? He's the truth. And all the battles that you will see between human beings is we're all battling for what's true, right? Every fight, every war, somebody believes something else is true, whether it be the Civil War, whether it be, everybody believes certain things are true, and they can't come to an agreement, and then they have a war. That's how it all works. They couldn't, they wanted to impeach Trump. Every battle has to do with authority on what is actually true. But a lot of Christians don't understand this in its simplicity. But there's a lot more things I could teach here, but But the true thing that you don't understand, when Duncan says, oh, he doesn't talk to us, oh, yes, he does. And you better be glad he don't talk to you, because if you didn't do what he said, then you have a judgment. I'm glad that he doesn't talk to me in an audible voice, because I would be under a judgment if I didn't do what he says to do. So I'm glad he doesn't. I'm glad the only time he spoke to me in an audible voice was to help me. Because if he told me to do something, and see, what you guys don't understand is that when they came out of Egypt, it wasn't hidden. There was no veil between them and God. It was out in the open. God spoke from a mountain thunderously, and he never did that again. Even when Jesus came, the only people that got to see the miracles were the people that actually followed Jesus. And that's how it works in this realm. You have to get born again. Then even if you get born again, it doesn't mean you're going to know anything about Christianity. You have to follow him. And there's a secret, and I don't know if I'm going to reveal it here. There's a secret to following Jesus. Anybody can do it. And Jesus even gave the secret. I'll even say the secret, but it's not really the secret. It's the beginning of understanding the secret. But Jesus said you have to deny yourself. And that's a little bit more tricky concept than what you really think it is. Now, for you to be successful, you've had to deny yourself in some ways. To be a martial artist, you have to be an expert in a martial artist. You have to, you can't really eat whatever you want. You can't drink whatever you want. You can't take drugs, like you can't take steroids. You got to be disciplined. You got to deny yourself. Anything that you want to become expertise in, whether it's martial arts or Christianity, it's all the same. It's universal. He's not saying anything that ain't true. But there's a trick to it. There's even a deeper trick to it, and I'm not going to reveal the secret of that, which most people would never see. I'm not going to reveal the secret to that. And I haven't done it. I'd like to try to do it and see where it leads. It's like going down another rabbit hole. Getting born again is just one rabbit hole. It's taking one. It's like there's multiple red pills. Okay, you get born again. Okay, you took one little red pill and you went to a certain realm, a certain place, right? But if you want to take it to the next level, you got to take another red pill. And there's not too many Christians that take that red pill. That's why there's not too many real Christians. And I don't even consider myself a real Christian. I'm not a real Christian. A real Christian is one that denies itself. I ain't even begun to do that. I know now God's given me a lot of information, but you know the saying, stupid is what stupid does. Got that on my wall. Stupid is what stupid does. So those Christians that just blow me out of the water, even though I have way more understanding than they do. Because it's not what you know, it's what you do your actions are who you are. It's not how much you know. I mean, you can be a Neil deGrasse Tyson that just speaks everything he knows, but if he never uses that information to do anything, then will he be remembered? Will he be remembered through history? No, you only get remembered through history if you're an Einstein, when you actually do something. You take that information and you do something, and that's true on a large scale or a small scale in life. And that's one of the secrets of life, is the consistency of doing. That's why ants outperform human beings. Ants outperform human beings because they do that because they do one simple thing. It's called they do. They actually do something. You got homeless people out in the street, okay? How can an ant be more successful than them when they have way more brain power? Now there's secrets on how all that works, and I'm not going to get into that here. It's a whole other topic, whole other rabbit hole to go down. But anyway, I can't make you guys believe. You just get born again, and then take it to the next level if you really want to. Because even if you get born again, you kind of start hearing God. If you have to deny yourself to a certain degree, and a lot of reason I think that people like Joe Rogan and Duncan don't they take drugs, they explore that realm, they take that red pill or whatever color pill it is they take, or mushroom, or inhale something, and they even inhale the good spirit of good spirits. They dwell in a good spirits. They inhale those spirits. They hang out with people that have good spirits. They hang out with people that are positive, that have the good spirits. They don't dwell with the negative Nancys, the people that are wrestling these demons and dominated by these demons. They don't hang around with those people. So they choose to eat, to breathe in not only pot, but these other people that are these good spirits. And I don't even claim to be a good spirit. Not as good as Joe. But that still doesn't mean that... see, a lot of people don't understand spiritual gifts. In the Bible, Saul, who was the king that tried to kill King David, even his spiritual gifts, he prophesied, which is a spiritual gift, because he had the anointing of God, even when he was trying to kill King David. So the spiritual gifts will work, even if you're not even if you're living in a horrible, sinful state. Some of them, they'll still work if you get around the right people. That's why Jesus made a statement. He said, not everyone that... I think Jesus even made a statement saying that there's some people that can even cast out demons and do different things and do some miracles that won't even go to heaven. He even said that. And that's quite possible, because you can find a truth just like science can find a truth. Science found the truth, E is equal to MC squared. New Age found a truth. It's called the law of attraction, which is actually the law of faith and the law of attracting either the demonic or getting God's ear. All the law of attraction is it's so simple. I'm not going to give the secret here. It's so simple. It's baby simple for me. But I'm not going to give the secret here. It's so simple, though. Anyway, I'm just frustrated when I see people that think that's never took the red pill. And I took the red pill a long time ago, got born again. God showed up, and I didn't even know who Jesus was, and God still showed up. I got tricked into getting born again. God showed up, felt this warm presence, and I thought, wow, this is great. And I thought, man, this is amazing. I don't know if I feel like telling this story. I'm tired. I'll tell it some other time. Anyway, I tried. It's a lot of work changing people's beliefs. But anyway, it's not an accident your podcast was 1444. Anyway, I think I'm done.